so happy to be online with you today. And I see a lot of familiar names and a couple faces. And so I am so thrilled that we can at least share this lunch afternoon together. Those of you that were nearby, hopefully you got your nice salmon berry salad from our Life Enrichment Activities team and our Community Relations team this morning. A little gift from our culinary department for you, and we can have lunch together today. Talk a little bit about the Lakeshore. The presentation today, I kind of set up based on previously what a lot of the most commonly asked questions are. So I'm going to kind of go through that information, kind of taking a stab at the fact that I might know some of the things that are on your mind, but a lot of things, obviously, I don't know. So we'll stop periodically and you can ask some questions, and hopefully we have some good conversation going today as you learn more about the Lakeshore. So a little bit about our history. The Lakeshore is a part of the Era Living retirement living family. Era Living has a total of 8 communities. They are all in the greater Seattle, Eastside, Bellevue, Issaquah area. So we are a smaller family-owned company. We are all in close proximity geographically to each other, but we all work very closely together also. There are a lot of differences in the residents and the culture of each community, but we are all anchored together and committed together with a mission and a purpose to serve the seniors of our greater Seattle area. Era Living was founded in 1987 and by Eli and Rebecca Elmo. And the Lakeshore itself was built in 1995. This summer, we just a couple months ago celebrated our 25th anniversary. So that was an exciting time for us here at the community. And at that celebration, we also were able to highlight a few residents and employees of ours that have been with the Lakeshore since we opened in 95. So that was a great party and a day, even with the COVID restrictions, that we were able to have some celebrations here. Although distanced, physically distanced, we are not emotionally distanced from each other. And so that was a great time to honor those people that have been with our communities the entire time and those that have joined us more recently. In 2016, we went through a little bit of a remodel. And so we updated a lot of parts of the building, like the dining room. Most of it was aesthetics, furniture, fabrics. And then we also, since then, have been renovating our apartments. So most of the apartments that individuals like you would be looking at to moving to the Lakeshore, you would be the first resident to ever live in those renovated apartments. So you'd have a brand new, fresh apartment for you to enjoy. Like I mentioned, our mission here at the Lakeshore with Era Living is to respect and honor older adults and enhancing the quality of their lives or your lives. So really we take that to heart. The team and I work every day, also in partnership with the residents and the resident council and the leaders in the community to really show and focus on how we can honor you, how we can respect you, and ultimately how we can continue to enhance the quality of your life and have these years in this chapter be fulfilling and social if you're a social person, activities if you're an active person, and really how we meet the needs of each of the individuals and what you're looking for right now in this chapter of your life. A little bit about myself. I have been with Era Living for 11 years in a couple of our sister communities and various positions within Era Living. But I have been here at the Lakeshore most recently for a little over 4 years. I went to the University of Washington, UW Foster School of Business. I've had a little bit of a varied background in my careers, a fine arts background, some employment opportunities I had helping seniors like yourselves who were still in the workforce and finding jobs and positions that would be fulfilling for seniors. I had some time in the custom home building construction industry. And so I learned a lot from those positions operationally, but also working with a different kind of facet and group of people, and really feel like I've hopefully been able to kind of pull a little bit from those various positions to kind of assemble or melting potting that all together here at the Lakeshore. One of the things I am most passionate about is the sense of community and what that really means, you know, maybe globally or bigger, but especially what that means here at the Lakeshore. We're not all joiners, we're not all outgoing, but what that really means in a community-like setting to be a part of a community, and how we can accentuate what everyone's strengths are, what everyone brings to the community, whether that's based on life experiences you've had, traveling you've done, jobs you've had, families you've been a part of, and really how we take everybody's perspectives and experiences and strengths and how that really elevates and contributes to a community. I think it's important when we have the opportunity for friendships and relationships, neighbors, and really focusing on how we create a space and an environment where everyone feels welcome and appreciated, that they can contribute. And for me, that's really what a community is. So it's not my community, it's not the employees' communities, it's really, it's all of our community, but it really is the residents' community, and what you can take and give while you have your time here. I really like to focus on residents having autonomy and independence as much as possible. And so I do like to think of it as the staff are here as your assistants should you need us, but really what we can do to help you stay independent, have that autonomy, and be here to support you as a part of the community. A little bit about the building and the community. Jane shared some of that information already, that we have 156 apartments. We offer both independent living and, for those aging in place, assisted living if and when it's needed. We have about a third of our population are single men, a third single women, and a third couples. So we have a pretty good even balance of that type of demographic of a community. We have residents from ages 67 to 104. So we have a broad range of residents of age, experience, time in their life, and of what they're looking for right now in a community. We offer studio apartments, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms and a bath, and 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. So we have a lot of different types of spaces that are available depending on what someone may be looking for or what you're used to previously to moving into the Lakeshore. So I think I'd like to take a minute and pause for a moment and just see if anyone has any questions so far. I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit more about the services that the community offers, kind of the health components are common questions. But I thought I'd just kind of pause here for a second and see if anyone had some initial questions or things that they'd like to make sure are on the agenda for me to address as we move forward. And you'd be pretty much all unmuted. So if you want to speak up, we'd be able to hear you.
And I am trying to unmute everybody from my side. It's not working, so you may need to unmute yourself, folks. Looks like many of you have been unmuted. If you want to go ahead and ask some questions.
Are you going to talk about the cost connected with the kinds of facilities that are available? I'm assuming you are.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and continue on here. First, I'd like to I am the executive director of the community, but we have 10 amazing individual department directors as well. And one of the things I feel like adds a lot of value and stability to our community, as well as a lot of good rapport and relationship building with the residents, is that a lot of our leadership team has a lot of longevity and history here at the community, a lot of familiarity with the community, the residents, the family members, and the staff. So looking here at the list of our department directors, we have our culinary services director, Rose Lata. She's been with the Lakeshore for 16 years. That's her there in the picture there. It was her and her team that prepared your lunch today. For those of you that were able to have the salmon berry salad. She has a great vision for the culinary team here, but she also works very, very closely with the residents. Some things that often come up with the residents are, not necessarily just the diversity of food that's available on the menu here, but also how she meets with each individual resident to speak about either special diets, things like allergies or dairy, gluten. So she works one-on-one with the residents to really help meet your individual dietary needs or just your individual preferences and taste preferences, and how she and her team and the servers can individualize things as much as possible for you and assist you in ordering from our menus. We have Scott in our facilities department. Him and his team furnish and keep track of all the entire building, landscaping, the building maintenance, but they also do handyman type things for the residents. So you need pictures hung, or you're having trouble with your computer, the light bulb's out, you think that there's a runny toilet, all those things that we at home have to try to figure out on our own. It's a little nice here sometimes to just pick up the phone and have Scott or someone on his team come, and you can move on to something that's a little more enjoyable than a drippy faucet. So Scott's been with the Lakeshore for 15 years, his entire Air Living career. And so he's a great kind of stable asset to our community. Krista has been with our Life Enrichment Department for 15 years. She's the director that oversees all of the activities, the trips, the excursions, transportation, anything that's going on socially, activity-wise, both in and outside of the building. So she spends a lot of time getting to know the residents, talking to the residents, finding out what types of things you're interested in, what's going on in the greater community that we can go participate in and get out and be a part of. And so she is also a great resource and asset to the community. We talked about myself. We have Sarah, she's our community health director. She is the VHA, VSN registered nurse of the community. She has been with Air Living for 5 years, and she oversees both the assisted living portion and team of the community, but also a good portion of our community health and wellness center that's available also for our independent living residents. And then we have Jane in our dining services team. Carolyn Robinson is our social worker. She's part of our resident and family supportive programs. Maggie's our administrative services director. Sheila's our housekeeping director, and Jane with us today is our community relations director. When we think about what kind of holds our community together, what is our, not necessarily just our mission, but how do we kind of navigate through our day and know that we're on the right track, and are we providing the type of service and nurturing the type of community that we want the Lakeshore to be. And one thing we really focus on here is the mind, body, and spirit parts of each of us. So we're not just about care, and we're not just about activities, but we're all of those things. We're all humans, and we have many aspects to us. And so we really are constantly looking at the service and the amenities that we're providing and making sure that we are able to meet all aspects of the human spirit. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the amenities that we have, or the services that we offer here at the Lakeshore. A lot of these were designed in partnership with the University of Washington, which we have a strong relationship with. So some things like the exercise classes or the programs that our Community Health and Wellness Center provide are really done in collaboration with the University of Washington, that they have that credibility, they have that research, that it's not just necessarily an accident, some of the things we're providing, but they really are evidence-based for us to focus on longevity, lifelong learning, and really aging and thriving at the stage in your life that you're at. And so we work closely with the University of Washington. And within that, they really help collaborate on our life enrichment department. So that's one part where we really want to focus on that mind and body and spirit piece, and how we can meet your social interests, your mental brain exercises and things like that, as well as keeping your friendships, keeping you stimulated, keeping you active, and really having the variety that you have access to the things that are meaningful to you as an individual. So this picture here is of two of our residents, Jesselyn and Cynthia. They are two of our adrenaline junkies who decided to do the indoor skydiving together. They did a great job. Rest assured, there was another group of residents that would rather participate in the book club. So we didn't force everybody to jump out of the plane. But these two daredevils did jump out of the make-believe plane inside. But the rest of us, we did things a little closer to the ground. And so we really want to make sure that our life enrichment team is working closely with you to make sure that there's activities of interest that are available for everybody. Life Enrichment also puts together a monthly calendar of events, presentations from guest speakers from the University of Washington or nearby colleges, current events. So a wide variety of ways to keep us engaged, keep us current on things going on, but also have that time to keep our friendships and our relationships with one another going. And most recently, especially with COVID, we've been focusing a little on what we can do online. And so for some of us, getting on the computer, getting on the internet, getting on Zoom meetings has been a little bit of a stretch. So the team here has been working with our residents to offer classes, mentorship, just any ways that we can. Even at 100 years old here, Les is willing to learn a few new things. And so we're here to help support our residents during this time. And whether that has been online medical appointments, Zoom calls with friends and family, online lectures and presentations. Our residents have had a great spirit about learning new things and offering our support and them accepting it in order for us to keep in touch and not be as isolated as we would have otherwise been. So maybe we can stop here for a minute again and see if there's any questions, if anything's come to mind. If I'm talking too fast, that happens sometimes. Okay, we'll keep going. On the campus here at the Lakeshore, we have a pea patch area that's very vibrant with vegetables, flowers, things that residents have planted and are maintaining and harvesting. So if you're a gardener, we have a wonderful southern facing bright pea patch area that comes with all the garden tools, water, hoses, all that our farmers need out there. We also have our walking paths around the building, which is great for those that like to keep walking and be outside, especially this time of year. We have our library area with books that are available. We also have a library committee of residents that help keep the area organized. When new residents are donating books, they're getting them cataloged. So it's a pretty interactive area that is maintained by the residents in the library committee. And we also are a pet-friendly community. So residents and their pets are welcome. As long as the pet's demeanor is community-friendly. We have lots of little dogs and some cats, and everyone is well-behaved and well taken care of here. So our four-legged friends are definitely welcome here at the Lakeshore. One way that we focus and are mindful of our mind, body, and spirit is with food and dining. And one thing that I feel like is really crucial in a community type setting is communal dining. And so that's been one of the hardest things lately, is how with our dining room being temporarily closed right now, is how we can still kind of engage in that very important time of the day. Our dining room is open breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And right now we are still servicing and providing meals to the residents for all 3 meals a day. They are chef prepared meals with Rose and her culinary team. And so we are still, like the lunch you had today, still able to provide a high quality, delicious, nutritious meal to each of our residents. So we don't want everyone sitting around, eating too many frozen dinners right now. We really want to make sure that everyone is staying healthy and well fed. In a typical day in our dining room, they're the panoramic views of Lake Washington. Our chef, like I said, it often meets with residents to discuss your individual tastes and preferences and if you had any special diets. Really trying to focus on a culturally diverse menu, accepting menu ideas and recipe contributions from residents. And the dining team and the culinary team offer some staple menu items that are on there all the time that you can count on, but they also offer a lot of variety. So there are different daily specials and weekly specials, and Rose and her team change out the menu seasonally as well. And so you're always getting things that are in season, lighter things maybe in the summer, comfort foods in the fall and winter. And so she really does a lot to have a variety of a menu that rotates frequently and doesn't get stale and repetitive. Our dining services director and our dining team, our food servers, help new residents especially and getting adjusted and navigating the dining room. They're very gifted and sometimes pretty crafty or subtle about helping you find new friends and helping you find people to eat with. That's one of the things that we hear the most, is that it can be intimidating to go into a dining room where people are already eating with people or you're the new person. And so our dining team and our servers do a wonderful job of helping you find people who you will have common interests with, that you might enjoy conversation with, and finding someone to enjoy meals with. Our residents are also very warm and inviting. We have a number of residents that have volunteered to be resident ambassadors. So they want to meet the new people. They want to eat with the new residents. And so there tends to be a warmth in the dining room of people who are interested in getting to know you and welcoming you to the community. The dining room also hosts a number of special events and holidays. So they're very creative in the variety of meals that they serve for a specific holiday or celebration, how they may decorate the room, and really just keeping the variety and celebrations going. Our residents have flexible meal plans, so they're receiving anywhere from 1 to 3 meals per day, depending on what meal plan they select, and they can use those any way they'd like. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you can mix it up any day. Today you can have breakfast, tomorrow you can have dinner. Today you could have breakfast and lunch, and then maybe tomorrow you're out, so you don't have any meals here. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you use the available meal credits that are given to you here. There is no assigned seating in the dining room. It is open seating. It's first come, first serve. You can make reservations if you would like, especially in the times when we were able to have you have your guests and your family come. So you do have the ability to reserve that nice table by the window and treat your family members to a special dinner on you here at the Lakeshore. Does anyone have any questions about the culinary and dining program here at the Lakeshore? Jane's gonna unmute everybody.
You say there's a certain number of meals per month that you get as a credit?
Yes, so every resident gets at least 1 meal credit, equivalent of 1 meal credit per day from the dining room, however they would like. And then they also have the option of purchasing additional meal plans if they would like to add 1 or 2 more additional meals per day. When the community was open completely, we also have our Coffee Talk Cafe on the 2nd floor, which has little pastries and treats and coffees, and those are all complimentary and included in living here. And so some residents would choose to just have a coffee and a pastry in the morning, and then maybe have the dining room for lunch or dinner.
So I think you said that right now, just because of COVID, they're getting 3 meals a day?
They still are on the same meal plan, so they still either get 1, 2, or 3, depending on what they've signed up for, but we are just bringing them all to the residents right now.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Some residents who used to previously just have 1 meal, maybe they split it up and, you know, liked some leftovers. Some of them have just elected to eat more often out of the dining room since they're not going to as much. Any other dining or culinary questions I can answer? How did everyone enjoy their salad today?
It was good.
Good.
Delicious.
For those of you who unfortunately were a little further away and didn't get one, they had a fresh salmon, blackberry, blueberry, strawberry salmon salad today, and a lovely little chocolate dessert.
It's wonderful. Those blueberries are huge. I love them.
It was very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
We sure enjoyed them too. Great brownies.
You skipped to the dessert?
Excuse me?
I said, did you skip straight to the dessert?
No, we ate everything from top to bottom. It was delicious.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. I wanna talk a little bit about some of the other amenities and services that are available at the community. But really, you know, to be honest, I feel like, you know, a presentation like this, it's a little hard to get too specific, and I don't want to do a kind of a laundry list of amenities for you. So I kind of picked this slide here to focus a little bit on some of not only the amenities we offer, but maybe a different mindset a little bit to think about it. We offer things like complimentary transportation, weekly housekeeping, maintenance, linen service. So I wanted to use this example of one of our residents, Mr. Nakanishi. He is an artist. I actually, if you can see it, I have a couple of his pieces up behind me here in my office. He moved in with his wife a couple years ago. Very fiercely independent gentleman. And he made a decision. He didn't necessarily see having a community like ours that could offer transportation and maintenance and housekeeping as something that was taking away from his independence. You can see that picture there of what snow we woke up to a couple years ago. And our maintenance team got right out there and shoveled the sidewalks and shoveled off the furniture and all the walkways so our residents could still get outside and enjoy the snow. But he also had the option as an artist to come back inside and spend his time painting. We actually featured him in our winter art gala. That's him there introducing a lot of his art pieces and focusing on explaining his work to the people that were visiting and able to gather here. And so I really thought it was,
Really, if you can't hear it, you can move over here.
of a shift of mindset sometimes we have about, is our independence really attached to things like shoveling snow at our house? Or is it attached to things like hobbies and interests and way we can spend our time and new things we can try or things we can go back to doing or friendships we can have? And so really thinking about what it is that keeps us in our homes and what we really think of as independence versus what we can think of as maybe a burden or just something we've always done, and is there a different way to do it? And something like snow shoveling and taking out the garbage and vacuuming is something you could give up, and what more you could gain from that. I think that's really where I come back to the beautiful part of a community like ours in senior living is you get that choice in how you want to spend your time, and maybe some of that freedom that comes with giving up some things, and especially if they're things that maybe aren't as safe for you to do anymore. Let's maybe shift that energy and that focus onto something that's more enjoyable. So Mr. Nakanishi made that decision on his own, and we have a lot of his beautiful art pieces around the community and in our offices. And he's a great testament, I think, to somebody who made that decision on his own, in an independent way, decided to shift to things that meant more to him at this point in his life. This is Randall, one of our community health nurses, and one of our residents, Mr. Bob Watanabe. And I wanted to talk a little bit when we spoke of that mind, body, and spirit piece of how we also focus on our bodies, and what, by focusing on that piece, what that enables and frees us up for some of those funner things sometimes. So we do have a community health wellness center in the community. It's staffed 7 days a week by a community health nurse, an LPN, or an RN. And they are available to assist all residents, including the independent living residents, with some health management type services. So they help with healthy, active aging programs in the community. They assist with promoting some of our exercise and fitness classes. But they also offer nurse consultations. They're available 24 hours a day for emergency responses. If something unfortunate happens, like you had a fall or you just had chest pains or you weren't feeling well, you have that peace of mind that there's someone here 24 hours a day, just right downstairs that could come up and help you. They do vital checks. So you can come down pretty much any time, get your blood pressure checked, do a weight check, talk to the nurse if you have something going on, and they are available to help you in a consultative type way. Does anyone have any questions? We're going to talk a little bit about assisted living here in a little bit, but does anyone have any questions about the community health piece and what's available for all of our residents from a community health perspective? Okay, we'll keep moving on. The next part of the community supportive programs, mind, body, and spirit piece I want to focus on is our supportive programs. One thing that is exceptionally unique to the Lakeshore, it's the only retirement community I know of that has a full-time social worker. So Carolyn Robinson is our counselor, master of social work. She is available with her team in many, many ways to help support the emotional pieces, the mental health kind of behavioral side of us, our feelings, our grief sometimes, transitional moving into a community and how to, that adjustment period. Maybe it's things that are going on with you and your family. And really how she is here as that emotional support and that backbone of our community. We're very tough individuals. I will say a lot of our residents come from a point where, you know, it's newer to think about our emotional health, but I really see so much love and peace, empathy that comes from the time that Carolyn's able to spend with our residents and really help during those tough times. Her and her team also offer some personal assistant type services. So sometimes it's just keeping up with the mail. Sometimes it's helping just keep your apartment organized. She and her team can also go to medical appointments with you if you wanted to. Maybe it's hard to hear the doctor, or they talk fast and she's really good at taking some good notes. She can also call back to family members if that's what you would like and kind of update them on how things are going. So her program is really multifaceted, but a great resource and something that's very unique to the Lakeshore, that we never kind of want to lose sight of that spiritual side of us, you know, that part where our spirit on the inside, because sometimes our bodies start to fail us. Sometimes our minds start to fail us a little bit, but that spirit, that essence of each of us is always still there. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing and meeting the needs of all parts of us. One of the biggest things that Carolyn and her team support is our newcomers group. So how we welcome new residents into the community, how our current residents volunteer to be resident ambassadors, neighborhood ambassadors, our resident council. We have a great group of residents that are warm and inviting and remember what it was like to be new in the community. And they really reach out, even now with COVID, they're reaching out to our newest residents that are moving in and really being able to extend a warm voice, a neighborhood spirit, and welcome new residents into the community. So the next section I'm going to talk about is a little bit more about care and assisted living. And so I wanted to see if anybody had any questions up until now of anything unrelated to assisted living at this point. Okay, we'll move on to the assisted living portion. Talk a little bit about assisted living and how we deliver care in our community. I think the key part about learning about assisted living is thinking of the words we're using. It's assisted living. So how can we assist you when you need it or if you need it, to maintain independence, to maintain safety and a quality of life. And so we really are there to assist you in what you need. Our assisted living program or service right now, like Jane mentioned, is about 1/3 of our community. So typically our residents are moving in fairly independently, aging in place. They have that peace of mind of planning for the future, that there is a team here and individuals here to help support you. We talked a little bit about that community health and wellness center and the nurses that are available. So a lot of times as an independent living resident, you've accessed the wellness center for vital checks, or you had that fall and they were able to come and help you, or you weren't feeling well one day and that nurse came in and checked in with you. And then as time went on, maybe you started to notice that there were some things that were becoming a little more challenging, or you just didn't feel as comfortable or as safe. These are the same individuals that are there now to help you under assisted living. So they should be a familiar face. You've built rapport and relationship with them. And so it's not a stranger that's coming in. It's somebody that you're familiar with and that you've gotten to know over time prior to sort of officially needing that next level of assistance. All of our apartments can be for independent and assisted living residents. So we are all commingled together. We go to the same activities. We eat in the same dining room. So if and when you were to need additional help, you would stay in your same apartment, and we would have the care team come to you if that's what was needed and provide the additional care. So you wouldn't need to move. If you were a couple, you would stay together in your same apartment. You would not be separated. You wouldn't have to move to the other part of the building. It's discreet. We want to respect your privacy and your dignity and bring those services to you in your apartment. Most of our assisted living services are probably what you've heard of if you've done any research or ever visited an assisted living community. We can help with things like bathing, dressing. Sometimes, let's say you had a wrist surgery and those buttons on your shirt are a little more challenging right now, or you had that rotator cuff surgery. And so getting your shirt on, your flexibility is a little more limited. Sometimes assisted living is just a temporary assistance while you're recovering from something. It doesn't necessarily, isn't indefinite. So it's really a lot of flexibility. Like I said, it's your autonomy and your independence, but really how in those moments we can support you so that you recover safely, that we can help support whether you're having physical therapy and some other things, and we can really be there as that care team to help support you during that time. This picture is of a couple of our residents, Jesselyn and her friend Len, at our luau last year. And really seeing how when you have a temporary need or your spouse has a temporary need, how we can help you in taking care of yourself or taking care of your spouse. We also offer dietary and nutritional support. So if you're having a more specific dietary type nutritional need, our care team can help support that with you as well. So let's talk a little bit about the cost. There are two main components of the cost of living at the Lakeshore. So one is the basic kind of rental fee of the apartment, the month-to-month rent fee. And that ranges anywhere from about $3,200 to $6,000 per month. That includes the complimentary personal transportation. That includes almost all of the utilities. The only exception is your home phone. So that includes water, sewer, garbage, electricity. That includes weekly housekeeping, taking out your garbage, changing your linens and your sheets and towels, cleaning your bathroom, vacuuming, cleaning your kitchen. A couple times a year doing a deep clean, a spot clean of your carpets and the inside of your windows, your deck outside. Meals, that at least one meal per month.
Lindsay did mean 1 meal per day, not per month.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, 1 meal per day. Everyone's on a diet. And then the other component of how that variance, that range of the rent, how that's determined, is pretty much, I'd say 2 key factors. One is the size of the apartment. So that range between the studio all the way up to the 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. And the other biggest variable is the location in the building. So do you want a full panoramic lake view? Would you like a pea patch garden Mount Rainier view? Do you like the interior rose garden courtyard view? And so those 2 factors typically play in the most to that range of the rental amount. So that's where Jane and Lisa are really good at working with prospective residents and talking about what is your budget, what's most important to you. A lot of our residents say, you know what, the dining room has a beautiful view. I go walking outside and I'm out of my apartment a lot. So that view part is not as important to me as the size of the apartment is. The other component of the cost is if and when you're accessing the assisted living, that would be in addition to the rental fee. And to try to keep things kind of concise, the assisted living services are a la carte. So if someone's on bathing, they're only paying for bathing. If someone's on bathing and dressing, then you're on 2 services. And mostly how the cost of each of those services is evaluated is based on the frequency and duration. So do you like a bath once a week for 15 minutes? Or do you like a bath 4 times a week for an hour? So I typically like to say that assisted living services for budgetary planning purposes, I think you could budget around for a very kind of initial transition onto assisted living minimum service to budget maybe around $800 or so a month. That would include probably 1 or 2 services. And that also would increase you up to the 3 meals a day meal plan that would be included with that. And then as someone ages and as maybe conditions may change, I think you could average your budget towards the higher end of about $2,500, $3,000 a month for assisted living. Now that's going to be an average, and that's definitely for someone who, you know, is having some more complex medical needs. But if you kind of use those numbers on the average of kind of how old you are and what kind of number of years you're budgeting for, I think you could kind of go in that range there just to get a budget number. Does anyone have any questions about the assisted living program?
Yes, I have a question. So does care extend to the end of life?
Care does extend to end of life. there's a couple things we can do. We do have residents that go through end of life and transition onto hospice or palliative care. They are well supported by our care team. Occasionally, there are some levels of service that are outside of the scope of what we can do under our assisted living license. And in that case, we normally work pretty closely with family to see if it's a viable option for supplemental services, whether that's the addition of an occasional private caregiver or family member. Sometimes that's the addition of a home health type service from your physician and through that part of your care team, which is typically billed through insurance. So as long as someone doesn't have what I tend to think of as that skilled nursing level need, so, feeding tubes, paralysis, things like that, that would be really a higher level of a licensed level of care. We definitely have a lot of residents that are able to stay here at the Lakeshore through end of life.
And what about memory care?
Memory care, we are not a secured memory care community. So typically, if you're newer to kind of thinking about the retirement living options, you typically have maybe your 55 plus type community that has no care type services available. It's more of an all independent like community. You have a community like ours that offers independent and assisted, and you can transition. And then a lot of times there's all assisted living or memory care, or just all memory care type community. And then also that skilled nursing level care. So we're kind of right in that medium, low to medium level of care from a percentage wise of the community. Typically when someone is transitioning to a memory,
Not staying here. Listen.
there's two main motivating factors, I'll say. One is that someone's not safe in the community. Are they trying to leave and not find their way back? Is there a behavioral part of their memory loss that it's putting them at risk, like forgetting to turn the stove off or going into the wrong apartment, things like that, where we would talk about this may not be the safest or most appropriate. However, we do have residents in the community that do have memory loss. They most of the time have lived here at the Lakeshore for a while. This is another reason why I'm a big advocate for not waiting too long, because there's something that happens in our brains and our minds when we are able to adjust to a new environment, learn our apartment, learn our neighbors, learn the staff, and establish that sort of routine in that new familiar area and that time, so that when we start to decline a little bit, our mind can go back to memories that are at the Lakeshore. And so the Lakeshore still feels like home. You still identify that as your home. So as long as someone is safe in the community, predictable, very comfortable knowing their apartment, there aren't any behavioral challenges, then someone is definitely appropriate and welcome to still remain here at the Lakeshore. If things were to progress and change, then we would work with a resident and their family to talk about more of that memory care supportive environment. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. We also have memory fitness. It's an extension of our life enrichment department. So typically when you think of memory care per se, that is a nursing, that's a community health assisted living licensed level. So they are set up and geared and specializing in a lot of the physical needs of someone with memory loss, so that those behavioral type safety concerns. But sometimes someone is still able to physically take care of themselves. Their hygiene is fine, they're safe here, they're predictable, but they have a harder time remembering which room was the exercise class in, or what day is that class on? Is today Tuesday? and the class is on Thursday. Oh, I forgot to go again. And so through our life enrichment department, we do offer what's called memory fitness, which is more of an activities-based programming that's available. And they really focus on socialization and having some of those smaller group activities when maybe that big life enrichment monthly calendar is a little overwhelming. So let's just tease out the things that you like. Let's have the staff call and remind you to go to those things. Maybe they go walk by your door and remind you to come. But that's really a good bridge sometimes between assisted living and memory care, especially for someone who physically is doing fine, is just challenged a little bit on the social side and getting to the right place at the right time. Any other questions about any topic?
What if you have a long-term care? Do you guys coordinate if things get pretty dicey?
Yes. So typically long-term care insurance policies do not kick in unless somebody is on assisted living. So that's normally the first criteria is, do you need assisted living support? Then Sarah, the community health director, and I look at your long-term care insurance policy. This is something that Jane and Lisa could help facilitate for you right now as you're making a decision, is to give them a copy of your long-term care insurance policy. Jane and Sarah and I can look at it for you now and see if and when you access it, are we a qualified provider that your policy is going to accept. So we want to know that earlier on. But if and when you transition onto assisted living, we would look at the details of your policy and make sure that the services that you are accessing will initiate your long-term care policy. So for example, one of the standards of the policies is typically that you have to be getting help with 2 or 3 activities of daily living. So that's the bathing, medication, those sorts of things. So let's say right now you're like, well, I don't know, maybe I don't need that much help. I'm just struggling with my medications. Then Sarah would be able to tell you ahead of time, okay, Donovan, your policy is not going to kick in yet. You're only gonna have met one of the criteria, versus if we're also helping you with these other things, if a need is identified, then your policy would kick in. Once the policies kick in and you are on assisted living, Sarah will submit your paperwork each month to your long-term care policy, which will initiate them sending you the reimbursement. So most insurance policies are about a month behind. They see what you did this month. Sarah sends it in at the end of the month, and then a couple weeks later, you get your reimbursement, and then she just kind of keeps that cycle going for you.
Great.
So I will welcome any of you to reach out to Jane and Lisa if you're planning for the future, and to be able to send them a copy of your long-term care insurance policy if that's something you would like them to review for you. I'm a planner, so I'm always, I like to kind of think through some of the scenarios, set ourselves up for success, get our ducks in a row, lay our foundation, and then I like to go out on the lake and look at the birds and have a good time. Any other questions I could answer? I know it's been, we're kind of right at that hour mark, so I don't want to take up too much time if you had somewhere else to be. I did have one more kind of section here I wanted to talk about related to kind of where we're at with COVID. And then if anyone's willing to kind of stay in on the end, I would love to hear from you. I'd like to hear what some of your biggest concerns are right now. What are some of the things that are kind of playing into your decision on whether or not to make a move to a community like ours, or when, or kind of where your thoughts are at. And if I kind of, I always like to hear what people are thinking and what you're feeling and what's kind of rattling around in there right now, and learn from your experience as much as possible. So if you're willing to stay on at the end and share that, I would love to hear from you. Let's talk a little bit about COVID, that dirty little word right now. It's changed a lot of what we're doing on a daily basis, but we are keeping our sense of humor here at the Lakeshore. I will revert back to that longevity of our leadership team that's been here 15, 13 years. They're creative, they're committed, and they're doing a great job of adapting. So if they can't have you come eat in the dining room, they're gonna bring a nutritious meal to you. And if they can't have you come down to see the band right now, they're gonna bring the band outside your window for you to enjoy from your balcony. So we are doing things very differently, but you have a team here of about 100 employees that are absolutely committed to keeping life interesting and safe and healthy and engaged. And although sometimes physically isolated, we are not emotionally or socially isolated right now. So this is one of our residents, Miss Luana. She doesn't like wearing a mask. She has a good sense of humor about it. And so we captured this little moment of her having a little sarcastic moment with her newfound requirement of wearing a mask. So we've, over the last, let's see, where are we at now? We're at 5 months. We have adjusted based on many factors. Our cleaning, obviously our cleaning and disinfecting practices, our processes for our staff and residents and guests. I would say that I am extremely proud and lucky to be at Air Living of all retirement community networks right now. We have an amazing home office, community health, nursing team that is very connected, networked, aware, pioneering a lot of research, working closely with the University of Washington. Air Living was one of the first, if not the first, in the Seattle area to start being able to broad test our residents and staff for COVID. I feel like that really helped us be ahead of a bad situation or the potential of a bad situation. And I'm really proud that we have invested so much time and energy over the years of building those relationships, of having those professionals and those experts in the position that they are. The Air Living invested in these positions and these people, knowing that it really benefits all of us when we have experts in our back pocket. So we've adapted screening protocol for all of our staff every day when they arrive at work. We're also following closely with the Governor Inslee's requirements of communities like ours right now, which include restrictions or precautions, regulations for visitors into the community right now, social distancing, requirements for our communal dining, and what we can and can't do from an activities perspective. So some of the most frequently asked questions that we have coming up right now, especially with COVID, are, is it safe to move into a community right now? Well, I think so. It's not the same as it was before, but it is safe. We have not had a positive COVID test in over 4 months, and that was of an employee who, or a couple employees who had not actually been working in the building. They had been in an on-call status with us. And so we really have, and we had one resident this entire time, and that was back in March. That was our very first case when everything first started early March. And she was never in the building after she had received her or started to show symptoms. And so really our staff awareness and presence and familiarity with what we were looking for with COVID early on, I feel really put us at a good spot. So right now we're just trying to maintain, keep our heads in the game per se, and making sure that we're working with residents and staff and family frequently. Originally I was sending out almost a daily email message to family members. So for the first 3-4 months, family were getting an email from me every single day of the week, just updating us on where we're. I've been able to kind of scale back to about once a week or so now. But anytime there's a change, anytime there's a change of, regulatory type things from the state, or just a change of the status of the community, I get that message out to the residents and the staff and the family as quickly as possible. We are allowing move-ins. We had 3 residents move in the month of August. It is a little bit of a different process as far as getting COVID tests done. But really, there's some logistics with, movers and things like that. Residents are still moving in. They're being able to get acclimated and set up in their new apartment. Staff are still able to reach out and connect and explain and introduce the community. Residents are still able to reach out to new residents and welcome them and still be ambassadors. It's a beautiful time of the year right now here on the lake. And so it's a great time for our new residents to join us and enjoy the sunshine here lakeside with us. Our residents and staff are being tested. Right now, the broad testing that we are able to do for residents and staff on site is being done every month or so. So we actually have another one coming up here in the next week or 2. And then we have the ability on site to test residents and staff in a one-off scenario. So as soon as someone thought they had symptoms, as soon as they, whatever concern came up, we would be able to test them right away. And we typically are getting the results in about 24 to 48 hours. So we're able to keep someone isolated or an employee out of the building during that 2 to 3 day period of time until we're able to get the results. We also have an extensive protocol should there be a positive case, depending on whether it was an employee or a resident, being able to see who they may have come into contact with, and depending on the condition, especially if it was a resident, the precautions that would need to go into place if they were on assisted living, for example, and receiving hands-on care from our staff versus, if they were a more independent living resident or if they were being cared for off-site. So those have been some of the most frequently asked questions I've had about COVID, but I'd love to hear if anyone has any other, since this is a newer topic for me to cover, any other COVID related questions that you might have.
Once again, can you have visitors come and visit?
We can have visitors. Right now, the governor's regulation states that the visits need to take place outside. So we have set up 3 tents and seating areas and some comfy furniture for members to visit with the residents at a socially setup. And they just can't come into the building yet. And we'll be evaluating that if the governor's restrictions stay like that going into fall and winter, we'll need to adjust so that there's a more weather-friendly way that we can continue. And like I mentioned earlier, we are assisting a lot of residents with online type meetings if someone's more long distance, if someone hasn't been feeling well, they have a compromised immune system. We've been able to facilitate a lot of online meetings and online doctor's appointments with the resident and our care team so that residents can avoid going out if it's not, essential and everybody's okay. Residents are pretty mindful of each other and their commitment to keeping the community healthy. And so we've been working together to avoid unnecessary exposures and stay close to home when possible. Any other questions? Whoop. So if anybody is willing to stay on, I would love to hear kind of where you're at with things. If there's anything on your mind or things you kind of want to talk to or talk through. I know sometimes it's nice to hear other people are going through the same thing you are. So we have a lovely group of very independent residents that are anxious to get back out there in the world and resume their social and active lifestyle.
Lindsay, we were a little late getting on board, and I don't know whether you spoke to costs. You know, is there a certain amount you have to pay to get into a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, and then what the monthly range would be?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Actually, when we talked about the cost, the rental of the apartment cost and the assisted living part, I did overlook mentioning there is the one-time move-in community fee also, which is about $4,000. That is a one-time community fee that goes kind of there. We don't charge a first and last month and damage deposit and all of that. It is a one-time community fee. And then yes, we did speak about some of the ranges of rent in kind of that $3,200 to $6,000 or so a month range, depending on studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments. And then we talked a little bit about budgetary numbers for assisted living, depending on someone's care needs, and some really kind of high-level budgetary numbers of kind of that $800 to $2,500 or so a month for assisted living. So Jane and I can, or Lisa can get that information to you and kind of the talking points of that section of the presentation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
If how would you know if somebody fell in their apartment? Do they have a buzzer or something?
Yes. So there's a couple options. All of the apartments and the common areas in the hallways, the common rooms of the building, and even the walking paths around the exterior of the building have red alert buttons periodically. And so if someone was to fall or not feel well, or just, wanted some assistance, whether you're independent or assisted living, you can activate those red alert buttons at any time. And it tells us the exact location. So it would say, Betty in apartment 101 has activated the alert in her bedroom. And then that would go to our front desk and our nursing team 24 hours a day. They would respond to your apartment or to that hallway and check on you and evaluate. They can provide first aid if someone fell, depending on their status, if they were injured or hit their head or things like that. They may be able to help, or they'd be able to facilitate calling 911 and escalating things from there depending on the situation. We also offer for residents to have like a personal help button, which is either a necklace form or a bracelet watch type form, which is mobile. And so someone could wear that all the time. They work in the shower, waterproof, and they can wear that around the building. And so if something was to happen wherever they were, they could activate that. Those are wireless, and so they would give us a kind of a zone in the building where the resident was at and needed help, and we would be able to find them and provide the same type of assistance.
Okay, I have a second question. If you have a pet, is there additional charge for that?
There is a one-time pet fee, which covers some additional cleaning and maintenance when residents are moving out of apartments. But after the one-time pet fee, there is no additional charge for pets on a monthly basis.
Do you know what it is if you have a cat?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's $800 per pet.
Oh, 800. And that includes feeding and cleaning the litter box, or that part?
That is a service, but that's not included. So we do, that's kind of one of those things where I say, why don't we spend our time more enjoyably than scooping a litter box?
I do that now for her, so.
We'll let you off the hook. You guys can go have a glass of wine together and we'll scoop the box.
Okay.
You know, that brings up a good point. I know that wasn't, you know, what you were kind of getting at, but I think that's one of the beautiful things when people move into a community like ours, is you kind of start to be able to untangle some of those responsibilities. And we love, you know, taking care of our parents. We love, you know, having that rapport and that bond, but also it kind of frees up some of that. So we can kind of go back to those conversations about life and friendships and learning from each other. And sometimes it takes away that part where we've gotten to where all we talk about is doctor's appointments and, you know, cat boxes. So I think that's nice to see that the community staff are not necessarily just here to support the resident, but to support your whole family and whatever each of you needs to help nurture and then, you know, keep the relationship and those dynamics less strained. You know, we would do anything we can to kind of help support that.
Can I have a question in that regard? Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Martha. Is it all right to have a bird? I have a bird, one parrot, and I'm gonna downsize her cage, but I want to keep her with me. Is that a possibility? If she's not loud, she's not a cockatoo.
Yeah,
she doesn't scream.
All pets are allowed. I just kind of look at two parameters. You know, can you take care of the animal and keep a sanitary environment, or welcome the assistance of our staff to help maintain that? And is the pet, you know, not disturbing neighbors? So barking, chirping,
right,
meowing, you know, how destructive to the environment would the pet be? But we are pet friendly, and I know your pets are a big extension of your family. And so we want to make sure we're mindful of everybody's preference and how we can keep everybody in their home environment pleasant.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. What's your bird's name?
Ziggy.
Ziggy?
Yeah.
We don't have any birds right now. I think that would be our first.
Is an African gray.
Any other questions I could answer for anyone? Otherwise, you know, I'd still like to hear what's on your mind, where you're at with your decision-making process. I'd like to see how many of you do you feel like COVID is the biggest kind of component of your decision-making process right now versus, you know, the questions and hesitations you still had prior to COVID?
I'd say COVID and cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too. Martha here. COVID and cost.
What are some of the COVID concerns?
You answered it. You don't have very many cases, so you've been doing a really good job. So, yeah.
I agree that you've been doing an excellent job, but it's well known that all the experts say that the most unsafe situations are congregate living, which you guys are kind of controlling, you know, the safety of this. So, but in general, congregate living is not recommended. I mean, it's the most unsafe.
I'd like to, sort of highlight about that is one kind of, it's not a misconception, but I think being the general population, the general media population especially, is kind of newer, I think, to looking at the long-term care type label. And so when you see things like, Life Care Center and some of those places early on that had these outbreaks, those were like hospital type settings.
Yeah, I saw that.
People who are sharing rooms together, high levels of physical
living
care. And so one thing we've really been advocating for is really for, especially the governor and some of the regulations, but just the educational piece of really explaining the difference between, if you're in your home kind of alone, right, isolating, you would be doing pretty same thing here. You have the flexibility in your apartment to not have anybody come in, to not go to activities, to not, and that's at your discretion. So even if and when, we were to allow, or the governor was to allow some, smaller group activities, you could opt out. You have that independence and control to only do what you're comfortable with. And I worry about people who make kind of decision based on either worst case scenario or based on a setting or a vulnerable or more vulnerable population than where you're at. You're kind of transferring risks per se. You're the communal living risk, but you may be taking more by being isolated. Depending on how you're doing from a nutrition perspective. Having the peace of mind of staff here and checking on you.
Yeah.
Trade-offs, and I just want to make sure
right.
That's
true. Yeah.
They're making it with all of the comparing apples to apples.
Yeah. That's true.
We've had residents here that have said, I don't want the housekeeper to come in. I'll change my own sheets right now. Leave them for, all the way to people, we haven't really let them, but the ones that are like, oh, I'm fine, it's fine. We're like, no, it puts everybody at risk. So here's where our boundaries are. Here's where our limitations are right now, and that'll keep everybody safe. Any other questions? Any other things you'd like to share about kind of where you're at?
I have one again. What about people going out of the home and then going back in?
Things have shifted a lot in the last, couple, I'd say month or so. Previously, for example, if a resident had an emergency and they went out to the hospital, we were really hyper aware and alert with them returning to the community. Now hospitals caught up with a lot of their precautions. They're able to COVID test people right away, get the results right away prior to someone coming back to the community. So there's a lot of that that's kind of worked out through the greater system that, adds more confidence to what access residents may have. Residents, again, we're promoting online doctor's appointments, postponing any non-essential appointments, things like that. But residents have been putting off, some things for 5 months now, and it's time to get to the dentist or, some of those things. And so we work closely with them and their family and their doctor's office about what precautions they're putting into place. As far as social visits and social outings, again, we just keep educating and stressing and reminding families and residents that although this is a somewhat of an individual's choice, it also affects the greater community. And by far, the majority of people are very aware of that. They're working as a team and as a community and as neighbors. And those that are much more, you know, worried have made the decision to stay closer to home. And those that have had to go out for whatever reason, we've worked closely with them too of how they can have the safest way possible.
Thank you.
It's a bit of a trust game. It's a bit of an educational experience. Our residents are not prisoners. They're not, you know, there's no locked door. So at the end of the day, if everyone decided they were going to walk out and go to
The movies.
then they could. But I haven't seen that. The vast majority are just very respectful of everybody involved and doing this together. And they're being good neighbors.
I know you mentioned about looking at long-term care insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I did get a copy of my mom's, so
Okay.
I don't understand it. But
Yeah, that's common. I would, if you have a way to email it or scan it or make a copy and mail it to Jane and Lisa, they would be happy to look at it with Sarah and kind of evaluate so you kind of had a better understanding of. I would.
is that the only option, or would they be willing to come here?
They could come there, but they wouldn't come in. They'd stay out on your.
No, we have a community room that's in the down the hall.
Oh yeah, no, they'd probably stay outside.
Oh.
Yeah, or they could do it like this over Zoom with you.
I'll look at it, but I think it's quite a lot of pages. So.
Yeah. And I will, you know, advise anyone that does have long-term care insurance, if you haven't looked at your policy in a while, I would call them and make sure you have the most current copy of everything, because sometimes they have little amendments and things like that that get mailed out. And over the years that you've had a policy, you want to make sure that you have the most current information that we would look at.
I think I got about 4 months ago, so.
Yeah, that's probably good.
I told her just pay me the $700 that she pays every month. She doesn't want to do that.
No.
And the other thing you could do when you make sure that you've got your most recent copy is you could ask them if they could email you a digital file of it, so then you could forward that to us, and then we can print that out and go through that with Sarah down in the wellness clinic as well.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Okay. I have to find it. I don't know where I put it.
Well, I'm so glad you all enjoyed your lunch and could join me today. I know I've met a few of you, so I love seeing some new names and some new faces. Please feel free to reach out to any of us anytime. If you think of something later, something pops in your mind in the middle of the night, write it down and give us a call and we can discuss. And I hope, you know, for those of you who are wanting to move in and COVID is kind of holding you back a little bit, you know, to keep having those conversations with Jane and Lisa, because I want you to feel safe and I want you to feel protected. But I also, you know, I don't want, you know, this time in your lives to go by and you're alone or you're bored or you're not eating very well or you're not exercising, and that you could be a part of a community of wonderful people that are all going through this together and have lived, you know, lives that have gotten through worse probably. So we have a good support system here for each other.
Thanks for your presentation, Lindsay.
Yeah.
You're very
welcome.
welcome.
Thank you.
It was great to see everybody today. So as Lindsay has mentioned, if there's anything you need, any questions you have or anything that Lisa and I can do for you, we are here and always available to help you out. You know, one of us is here 7 days a week. So we're here for you whenever you need us, and we're happy to make accommodations. So just let us know.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody have a great
Thank you.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.